Hello, welcome to Lin's Napoleonic Shipyard. As you might notice, there's some sounds here in the background. It's something new I'm trying. I have a webcam that I'm going to try to record a little bit more what I'm doing and also maybe record the sound as I'm doing it. I did a little bit of sound recording previously, so I might put that before this or after this, depending on how well I think this works out. I do have a voyeur with my parrots and so on the side here, so if they're not getting used to it, hearing my voice, they might be making some noise in the background. We'll see how it all turns out, how it sounds, and what I can remove in post processing here. Um, it does have a really nice background filter and so on. This webcam is a brand new one. I figured it could be good for battle reports and for recording what I'm doing. So right now I am working on, and I'm going to see if I can swap this live to my table here. I'm working on a diorama, and it's the uh, Constitution, and we also have the HMS Java, and they had their for the Java fatal encounter in the end of 1812, December 1812. This is for a diorama, as I might have said, and it's for a gentleman in the States. And I've gotten quite far on this already, as you can see. I've started to rig them. And this time I am following my own app or the web thing I created, so the masting spark calculator, as far as the dimensions, diameters of the rigging goes. Also the mast, actually. But so that means that they're a little bit thinner than there are usually, and it might not be entirely clear. Yeah, it is. But you see, some of these are already quite thin, and those are the thickest ones. So the mainstays here on these ships are 0.15 millimeters. And then we're working our way down to 1.0, should be 0.8 in the app, but I didn't have 0.8 at home. Or 1.2 or 0.12, sorry. But it's 0. So a little bit thinner, and then I'm going to be working my way downwards in the diameters, and I'm going to show you the materials I'm using. The thinnest is going to be, and that's not going to be today. Maybe I'll record that at a later date, but that's going to be 0.02 millimeters for that, and that's the running rigging. So I'm going to continue rigging these, and I'll be recording it, and I might be commenting on and off here and see if I can record this live, maybe make a video of it, speed things up and so on, so you can see a little bit of the process I am using when I'm doing this stuff. So first thing I need to do now, because I am wanting a thinner diameter for the higher rigging here, so the gallant and topmast stays and so on. So the first thing I want to color the actual wire, and I'm for this part I'm going to be using. I got some new. It's called memory wire. I find it really good because it stays straight if I want it to stay straight. So that's what I'm using. It's basically brass wire or some type of wire as well. And I have a couple of different diameters here already. This is the 0.46, 0.67. It's not exactly as the diameters in my because I didn't find it, but in the app there it says I should use 0.08. But so I'm going to go actually a little bit thinner. I don't think it hurts. And of course, it's so thin already, it's hard to see. So, but I'm going to go with this one for the rest of this rigging. So they come in these rolls. There's many different. I'll probably show you later some different and see it attached here. And I'm going to need my beautiful glasses. I'll show you these here. Beautiful. but I need them to be able to see what I am doing when I'm working here. So I'm going to remove this. So this is so thin. I usually use a light background for the darker wires, and then a black background for the lighter wires, because otherwise you're going to lose them. I'm not sure it's hardly visible on the camera as it is by itself, right? You can see it on the mat here. I'm going to zoom in. Maybe you can see it better. Yeah. So that's how thin this is, and this is 0.67, 0.067. So already quite thin. So even if this is already dark, it's already black, I am wanting to get it even darker. So I'm going to have some stretches here done. So need to get some off the roll. This is a very good scissor for things like this. And it's like a precision plier, precision clipper, scissor, like that. And then important to attach it back in its seat here on the roll, because otherwise, let's see if I can get it to zoom. Yeah, so easy to lose these things. Okay. So this is a little bit too long to work with right now, so I'm going to just cut it up in shorter sections. And one would think, oh yeah, that's plenty, it's going to be enough. But you'll find when you're doing this, when you're rigging with these wires, it uses up so much more, and it's so much more expensive than one would think. Because and if you think about the big ships with kilometers of rope, I mean, it makes sense that you're using up meters of this thinner wire, diameter wire. So I'm just using an old rag here to lean it against, and then I'm just holding one end, and I'm going to color that after. But and then this is a marker, AK rubber black, that I'm using to color it. I find it easier than you doing it with a brush, and I'm just gently pulling it through. And the fine thing with this memory wire, and I've just started using this. Before I just used a normal brass wire, but the nice thing about this is that it doesn't, at least so far, hasn't started curling. You see, it stays straight even after I pull it through here. So that's one. And basically what it does is it protects the wire a bit, but it also takes some of the shine off, because even if it's black, it's shiny, and I don't want it to shine too much. Well, of course, I could probably do this with varnish as well, but this is the way I've been doing it. Sometimes, something works and you don't change it. So I'm just going to keep it like it is. I really do hope this works with the sound as well, recording as I'm doing this, because that might, I mean, not always, but sometimes could be nice for you to just like almost like a live action of the actual work being done. So there, I've prepped a few of them, and I immediately lost the cap for the pen. I do have some other markers that I tend to use, like when rigging and so on. I have actually a lot of these different. I do like these real color markers, but so the off-white, this one is one that I tend to use for the lighter running rigging, and that's just. I mean, sometimes I use a brown, so I think the running rigging could be different colors as well, depending on many different things. But just to mark the difference when you're building a model. Uh, that's what I'm going to do. So let's start with the constitution here. The diameters of these wires are going to be more or less the same. And sometimes there are going to be some shiny spots and so on the wires. You're going to have to go in with a brush and some thin black paint, like a rubber black or like a non-reflective black, and just get that stuff out there again to make it show better. So just bear with me. This is the first time I do this live, so let's see how it works. So what we need to do now is I need to measure. So I'm going to do the missing mast first. And so usually what I do is just generally measure how I want it. This one's going to go from just above the missing top yard down to just below the main yard there, or something like that. And it probably might not be visible here. Let's see if we can zoom it in. So there, should you be able to see? This might not work because you see this wire is so thin. So I'm going to show you in sections here how it's done. So let's cut the section off this. There's always a little waste doing it this way, but I feel I have better control. So that's really faint. Okay. So, and then sometimes I use a wax pencil like this one to pick up the threads for when I want to handle them. So something like this. If we can get it visible. But it's so thin that it's hardly with the camera. I can't really pick it up. Focusing on my fingers instead. Well, you can see it there, right? And sometimes it's useful with a pair of normal pincers like this. And maybe pick it up with your finger first. And then you have it like this. Now I can measure more closely how long I need this one. I need to take a tiny bit off this one. And since the wire is so thin, you don't need you can just use these scissors. See, I have more or less in my head these days how this works. I probably should put an image in here so you can see what I'm going from. It's a really good book, Rigging Period Ships, that is nice to follow when you're doing this stuff. And there's some other, but they're also just looking at for Constitution. I mean, there's the ship is still around, right? So you can look at photos of the ship, and then for all paintings, and there's different, but Roy is a really good French painter for accurate paintings. Okay, so now that's ready. So I use this one. I think there might be better ones and everything, but I've had good success with this. So it's a polyvinyl acrylate or how do you call it? Cyanoacrylate. Cyanoacrylate adhesive, and this is a gel formula. So that lets me just put tiny dabs on there. And sometimes they're too big anyway, and they get shiny and so on. But then what I'll do is I'll just paint that over after. You can only do so much, but and also is the thing in between getting it to adhere to the surface well and for long lasting, especially if you're doing a model for the tabletop, but also for a diorama, you want it to work, right? So even if there's would be some uh, damage or something to it, maybe it will hold together. So this always weighing those things. So um, this is where the hours go. You definitely need a steady hand and patience. which I don't have either. So I don't know. I'm just stubborn. So that's in. Then you need to give it time to dry. See if I can get this showing here in the camera what I just did. So that is very hard to show. Can I get it focusing on it? There we go. There. You see there from the missing top yard. Very thin wires already. So normally for a model for war games, if you want them to show more, so this weighing between realism and usability, right? Oh yeah, I do have some damage here. I don't know if I can get it to show again on that missing yard. You see the shrouds, the top shrouds, and the ratlines there on one side. They're actually uh, shot through and have fallen over the rigging here. So there's some damage, and there will be a lot of damage done. I might, I'm putting stuff in like it's a full ship, and then I'll damage it after many times. What I'll do in this diorama, or what I've done so far. Uh, but most of the damage will be seen, and that's also because you want a nice rigging for the look and everything. But some of the shrouds will be shot through, and some of the stays, I might have some stay missing and so on, or have it cut through and hanging and so on. So I'm going to decide this as I go. But let's zoom out a bit so you can see the whole model. Yeah, but there's a lot of detail already on the deck here and so on. Uh, Also showing off the damage with some dead crew and, yeah, horribly enough, some blood stains and so on. Those brass railings and so on. Very different ship, and of course they are. When you show them like this side by side, you see there is a difference here. That's an American 44, the Constitution. And this is a French 40 gun. It did start its life as a French 40 gun, the Java. So it had just recently been taken into British service by capture. So I'm going to do the same. The stay there for the Java. And I thought it worked slowly normally. Hawking and working, it's even slower. Well. We'll see if I end up abusing this, or I just ended up building very slowly instead. We'll see. So you see, I'm again pre-measuring a piece, and then this was pretty close. Just need to take a tiny bit of it. So it's patience, patience, patience. Correct, correct, correct. Sometimes you lose some material because that's how it is. See if I can get it. I probably fast forward through this section in editing. That looks kind of good. It's tiny dabs of these, really, because also it's very thin, the wire, so it's not a lot of weight, right? I don't know what it would weigh, nothing. So it doesn't need anything almost to stick. And then it's back to having a bit of patience. And what you don't want it with this standing rigging, so you don't want it hanging on the yards. think some tutorial for Black Seas does that, where the actual um, standing rigging is too close to the yard, and what happens then is with the angle and it's being wire or stretched thread and so on, you end up having to cut into your sail to give space for the yard, which is not nice. And besides, they weren't like right on top of it. They were actually um, a bit. I had got some dirt on there, but I guess I'll remove that later when it's dried, right? Don't forget, I can't get it off that way either. Stuck on there. I blame my birds. Okay, so that piece is on, and it's looking okay. Also, what it does, since I'm using wire, it strengthens the actual builds here, because there's these wires in between the masts, right? So they're not really pulling, they're keeping them the same distance. So they're not working like the real ones would do on a real ship. Well, they are, but in a different way, I guess. They're not really pulling against each other the same way. So let's move on. I think I'm going to show you a photo on my phone here. So, um, so sometimes I just look at a photo like this one here on my phone, if I want the rigging looking kind of similar. So we're going to be doing these two now. So this one and this one. So going from the main to the foremast. Is the one attaches at the back here of the uh, fighting top, and then one is attaching further down. So we're going to do those two, and they're going to look similar. They're attaching in the similar positions on the British ships. Luckily, the rigging here, the standing rigging for different nations, at least what I found so far, is very similar. What happened now? Did I press something to pause this? Oh, yes. We're still recording. Oh, yeah. Well, I accidentally pressed the screen view, so I guess I'm gonna have to cut that out. Okay, so let's continue. This should be long enough for that. And it might be a little looking a little fiddly. I mean, I do have this stand for the larger scale 1/350 stand that I showed in a short a while back. That is really useful for them. But I still find this. It's just blue tack on the bottom here. But if you're not unlucky, which you are sometimes, um, then I think this is actually good enough for the work. I think I'm going to zoom this back in again, so you maybe have a chance to see what I'm actually doing. So right now I'm measuring here in between, trying to figure out how much I need to take off this one. Of course, I'm sure you could like be more meticulous and pre-measure all this stuff, but I am not. Besides, I like this way of doing it. I don't know. It's nice and fiddly. That looks about right for that one. I'm going to put that aside because I want to do the lower one first. So you see already I'm using up quite a bit of wire here. And I didn't waste much either. It's just happens. Why I'm doing the larger ship first is if I end up cutting one of these a little too short, like I definitely did with this one, I can end up using it for the bigger ships or the smaller ship after. Let's see if this one is longer. I just think a little bit wrong about this stuff. So this one is definitely long enough. Let's see how much I need to cut off it. It goes right under there. Is under the fighting top. From the cross trees. Just below the cross trees. So I need to cut off this much. This might be super boring, and then this might be the only video in this. But you're gonna have to, in the comments below, let me know if you find this is useful or fun to actually see the process up close. And I might actually end up speeding up large parts of this. So it's gonna hear my voice go, blah, blah, blah. But we'll see. I cut a little too much on it. Okay, I can still use it though. Just add a tiny piece to it after. Let's do it like that. So now I'm going to put a dab here in the back of the fighting platform, just to have that. And then, yeah. A video with Linus talking to himself. But you just have to bear in mind, this is the first time I'm doing this with you, Jens. And this is my work area. It's nothing advanced. Pretty simple work area. Ready to go. That always happens. So, oh, I'm stuck here. It's so thin. I can sometimes hardly see it with the glasses on, and then you do something, and it's like, oh, it's gone. And I don't know how many times I've dropped something on the floor. I don't know if you guys do that. And then I end up down there with my weird glasses trying to find it for a year or two. That I'm just admitting defeat and cutting a new piece. And get this stuck on here. Okay. Good. Maybe another double here. Tiniest amounts possible. Not really center it. And this is just one. Of course, this ended up being very fiddly right now, more fiddly than it should be really. And I've ended up having both. I'm happy with the success because there's people who really like my work, and I've been able to start doing commissions where I can actually charge a tiny bit more for my work, which is nice. But also, as you see, when you're doing this, you need to put in the time. Just takes a lot of time to do this. There we go. Okay. So that's in. Uh, like a millimeter missing there at the end. I think I can just do that with right here. Yeah. Okay, so that one is in. Now the next one is going to the back of the fighting top here. What's this? And then you're going to put in the second thread, and then you end up messing up the first one. Probably. We'll see. It was a little too long anyway. Usually they end up cutting off too much at the one time, and then, but we'll see. Get it. Maybe I can get that working anyway. Just gonna put the dab up there. Since the scale is so small, sometimes you can get away with some tiny stuff. Will be blocked there anyways. I see here I'm going to have a problem because I have these yards turned quite strongly on the Constitution. And so when I'm going to put the sails in, they're going to interfere with the rigging, like here behind this yard. So there I am going to have to cut it a little bit, the sail, to make it fit around the yard there. But it's not too bad. It's not going to show that much once you're getting further on in the build. That's all we're looking so far. So we can see. Okay, so now we're at the extreme. I'm in, even me, these are very thin diameters already for the standing rig. And usually I just do 0.1 for all the 0.01, 0.1, 0.1 for all the upper standing rigging. But then for this one, since it is supposed to be my best one so far, I am going all in. So we are using correct diameters here. So let's see where this one fits. Now we're on the Java, same thing. We need this one can be the one going a little below. It's stuck in there. It's all about hand-eye coordination, right? And look. Let's have a lot more of it. A lot more. Like a couple of millimeters. I might not end up recording all of this, but I think it might make it a little shorter. Just so you get an idea. If maybe you decide to give this a go yourself. So it's like that. You adapt something. There's always someone who did it before you, and then there's always going to be someone that end up looking at what you do and then can do it better. Like I think with as far as building mast and rigging, I have a friend in the States, he does this much better than me. Um, but at least I feel like I'm with a lot of this stuff. I hope I inspired some of you gents, and I feel like I'm a little bit of an early adapter with some of this stuff. So see, now I ended up cutting too much off this one. Okay, so this one's gonna have to go to the back of the writing top. Okay, this is much more fiddly than this usually. I'm already as fiddly as it is normally on the running rigging. But you see, the wire is really forgiving because it, even if I end up bending it, it goes straight back to its original shape, right? So that is something. So a little tiny bit off this one. And this should work for the upper one here. Yep. Okay. And I need one that is slightly longer than the next section. Let's see. So that's the top part. Ready. I really hope this works out. The whole idea with this camera and so on is to give you a little bit of a better look at the actual work that goes into this, and maybe, like I said, to get some of you inspired to maybe do some of it yourself. Many have picked it up, and I mean, I love seeing well built models in this scale. We're almost there. It's like a millimeter. Okay, I can take this tiny piece off, and then we go. That should be it. Okay. So this was even slower than it is usually. So as long as you use these tiny, tiny dabs, um, they're almost going to be invisible once the glue dries. Happen there. Strange enough, it becomes really, I mean, it has pretty good strength, cyanoacrylate glue. So once it's in place, it is really in place. Getting there. Maybe the tough one. There we go. Okay. That's in place. Let's do the next one. Let's to the back of the fighting top here. I mean, that's also the thing. I'm learning about the terminology and all that, especially in English, as I go here. I mean, I knew a lot less a year ago, and even less 2 years ago, and that's probably visible in my model builds as well. So I learned a lot about the real terms for this stuff and so on. I have a lot of my community friends to thank for this, I think. So I'm very thankful for you just sharing your knowledge with me, letting me make better builds. That's on there now. See if we can get that showing. Yeah, that shows pretty well. That's the Java. You can see there's she's like in the diorama. She's doing one of her first attempts there, and then the Constitution wearing in the smoke, and then she's actually just got a hit here from the front, which is having her bow on. It's not really rake, but almost. And so there's a lot of damage here along this line. The wood here is splintered, and there's a few Marines and sailors down on the forecastle here. I love that tiny work, like you're making them come alive. Of course, they always look kind of standing still or like dead, unless you put some crests on the base or on the diorama, the ocean diorama as well. So we are done with that one. And so we're going to be moving up a step. So we're going to be doing the gallant yards now. We'll start with the mizzen. And that's just going to be a single one going to the back of the fighting top there. Probably won't need a big one. We're going to start with Constitution again. I'm keeping this diameter all the way up now. So it's going to be this 0.067 diameter wire, memory wire. It's almost right from the start there. Tiny bit off. You can imagine in reality all these masts and yards and everything held in position with rope. It's a different age than today. So did I make that a little too short now? I think I did. See, I'm gonna have a slightly longer piece here for the Constitution, and then I'm gonna use the other for Java. So there we go. Patience. And this thin cap here is really good, but sometimes as you're working, even if you're working actively, it ends up drying up. Usually you can clean it by this, you know, that's how I do it. But then maybe sometimes you're gonna have to end up cutting the tip off because it's got, and also because then it would accumulate too much glue at the tip there, and then you can't be as precise anymore. So you're putting too much glue on your model. I have the second part of the article. I don't know if all of you caught it, but I'm very pleased with that. It's for Ships in Scale. There's a physical magazine, but also a digital one. So I have a three-part article there that I wrote up on this whole process of building these ships in this scale. So if you haven't taken a look at that, maybe you have a look. Maybe get that. So as I said, part 2 is out, and then there's going to be a part 3 coming in the next magazine. And part 1 was in the May, June section of it. There we go. It's good enough. No, no, it's not good enough. Wrong section. Oh, really? It's also the way I have the yards tilted here. makes it more difficult. And I see that I'm going to have some problems later on when I attach the sails on this model, on the Constitution model, because because of the extreme tilt of the yards. So but he's in the middle of a turn. He's like turning, turning with the wind, trying to catch as much wind. Suppose, sometimes I do stuff and I'm thinking it's right, and then it ends up being wrong anyway. But you're gonna have to live with that. So same thing for the Java. Mhm. I think that's almost is tiny, like millimeter. So yeah, so we live in the countryside in Sweden, so right now the animals aren't I have chickens and geese and all that. They all make noise, and I have dogs and I have horses. So far, they all managed to keep a little quiet here. And also, my wife works from home, which is great. So maybe sometimes you're gonna hear her voice in the background. She has the door closed, but and I am a teacher, so many who follow the channel probably know this. In Sweden, we do have, which is well needed if you're going to stay a teacher. It's not a privilege; it's a necessity, I tell you. But working as a teacher, you have summer holidays here in Sweden. So right now, I am not working. I'm working on this and healing my back. That is a little extra damage at the moment. I herniated a disc, I think. So that's been a process since May. Then my back is. I did break my back in 2016 doing martial arts or reenactment. It was in Neustadt Kleve. That was not the smartest thing I've done in my life. So there it is. It's in position. I hope I was in camera there. Did I go out of camera when I was doing that? Maybe I need to zoom out again. So far, I think the web camera is working kind of nice, though. It's showing things off pretty nicely. Here is one that dropped. Let's see. Here. So I think if I do this another time, I'd probably be talking more, right? Because I'm more used to it. But right now, I end up going silent. I don't know if I'm going to speed that up or if it's just going to be that type of video. Some of you might find that okay. Um, so starting to look okay now. So next we're going to go for the main, and I'm going to look at my picture again. Let's see if it's for the what's looking a little different there for the, yeah, it is. It has. There is one going to the back of the cross trees and one to the top uh, of the yards there. So we start again, Constitution first, and then we'll do Java after that. So now I'm going for two. You see, already I've used almost all the little wire that I had cut up for this. Mm, and then I haven't had to throw a large piece yet, but that happens sometimes. So this one is going to be super fiddly because it's going from all the way up here under the. Is that already too short? I think it is. It's going to the top of the fighting top here. So I need something slightly longer than that. So okay, so this ended up being a little bit too short. So I'll just keep it because again, working with two ships, I know that the Java is the smaller one. So if I just make a slightly longer piece here for the Constitution, and then I can use the shorter piece for the Java. There we go. It's going to be for the Java later. This is going to be the Constitution. Hopefully, this was now long enough. So, I mean, without magnifying glasses, not possible. This, I think. So, this piece is the tiny. So irritating. It never happens that I cut the piece perfect the first time. Almost, but not perfect. Always a piece. So from here. So for blocks and so on later on, so far there's this little metal like photo etch pieces that you can get, but I think they end up looking too large. For one 350, yes. For one 700, they're too large. They look too large. So I always end up just using tiny dabs of glue. Sometimes I have even pre-dried tiny dabs of glue because then I can decide the size myself. I just would make them very small. Otherwise, like the blocks look like it's like a 1 meter block. Is this showing? Yeah, it's showing. So interesting with this web camera view. I'm not sure. Of course, it's going to be a little upside down initially. And as I said, I might end up cutting off the sound altogether. It might not be good, the sound, and or maybe I just feel it takes too long. I mean, your time, as mine, is precious. Maybe this is a giant waste of your time to watch me build this. I don't know. Or maybe it's very useful to some of you. That's why I'm doing it. I'm thinking maybe to see in detail how you can work. It's going to help some of you get further in your own builds. That's at least my hope. And of course, this is completely unscripted. Normally, I script things nowadays because usually with a script, the quality becomes higher, I feel. So, no, compared to normal, this might sound a bit rambly, and my English might not be as good because it hasn't been recorrected. So that is in, and that's looking good. And again, it's going to interfere so much with the yard, but that's because of the angle. Yeah, can be very fiddly with getting the shrouds and the rat lines in and so on. When you want to have the yards more naturally turned, like of course for wargaming you could just have them all like the Java has it more like uh, straight, and it's so much easier to put everything in place. But then doesn't look as alive as it would otherwise, right? So that's one. I'm just going to quickly check where is the adder going. I mean, even if I've done this a billion times, always good to see again. So back of the cross trees. Oh, and again, close the screen. That's very annoying. Okay, so go. So this one is going from cross tree to cross tree. So I'm up here, to back here. Tiny bit off. So never cut too much here. Like better cut a few times. So then you end up with the right diameter and then yeah. So it okay. So from cross tree to cross tree. So I already had some glue up here. I mean, this way of working it, like with something like a little stand holding it and then blue tacking it in place, it can get a little weak when you're working with a really large, like a first rate with metal masts. And the weight starts to get that big that you're going to end up in some kind of trouble with it. Like, um, but otherwise, I feel like um, when you're working with this, it is completely good enough with this little piece of, you see that little flat piece in between the stand and the ship. It's just blue tack. And I glue it down, holding the chain plates, or like, because those are the most stable part of the ship. I haven't managed to break any of those by doing this. Just hold it down, press it down pretty hard actually, and then it stays on unless you twist it. Like if you get a twisting motion, you can twist it right off. So of course they're easy to take off once you want to. But I haven't had very few mishaps with this so far, which is nice. So far the US and the, because I haven't worked with too many, especially since I gotten better at this and with more detail. So I haven't worked too many of the US ships with this detail, but the rigging of a US ship, at least the standing rigging, is so far very similar to that of a British one. So that's pretty cool. It makes it easy to just copy the rigging. French standing rigging can look a little different. So, of course, I guess in between ships could also be different. I mean, this is, you know, of course, this is, I'm not rigging them for real, right? I'm just putting little memory or brass wires in between the masts. Um, so in the end, I have no real idea. Like I know there was some variation in between different ships, and of course different eras uh, of how these things were rigged. So it's an approximation at this scale, something that will look right, might not be completely right, but will look right because we're after an effect. So in my case, it is the effect is like to have it somewhat realistic looking. I have a Welsh pony here trying past the window. I'm not sure that's going to pick up on the mic. And the space gun, those are little zebra finches, or I can't, another type of finch that I also have. Get a tiny bit more. You see, patience, patience, patience. So much patience with this stuff. We already, since I started recording, I can see the time in the recording, so we're already 1 hour in. So of course I'm gonna have to speed this up a lot, I think partly, and we're gonna lose some of the maybe the commentary, or slow it down when I'm commenting and speed it up when I'm not. I don't know, but can't demand that any of you watch me rambling for an hour. That's not gonna happen. I'm this house that my friend did. I know it's annoying for many of you that they are not commercially available, but it is what it is, you know. And I mean, I'm not sure how long he's going to be happy enough with me for letting me have and give a go at building this, and also being friendly enough for letting me use them in actual commissions. Um, but there we go. I mean, at least they're here. You can see them on my channel, and there is the Turner models. I mean, for wargaming, the Turner models, yes, fine. These are made more for modeling than um, for wargaming, right? Of course, me being the extremist, I will end up using, like I did with the Majestic and the Endymion. Those are actually going to end up in my fleet, right? So I've already used them for war games. What happened now? Did I end up? Oh, yeah. Was that what? I suddenly get shorter. Patience. I don't know what is happening now. Did I end up doing this one too short anyway? Not to worry, then I'll use it for the top, but thought it would fit right in there. It's actually a tiny bit too short. Okay. Okay, so one, and then I had this second piece. It's also like how much energy do you have? Like because it's complete focus. So much do you have for one session? Like you're running out of patience, and then it's time for a break. So that's probably what I'll be doing here very soon. And we'll just call this the first part of the rigging, and then see if you like it, and then we might do another part later. Because I guess you don't have to see the whole thing. Um, because you get an idea of how it's done and how what you could do, like the patience. So from cross tree to cross tree. It's my wife. She's walking very slowly and quietly. She doesn't have to. They're gonna have to live with the. That's very friendly of her, but that's not necessary. If I'm here filming, then you guys are gonna have to live with some background. Okay. So very interesting how this will work. I think this will be the last one for now before I try more of the 4 stays there. Or the what do you call them? The 4 stays are in place, right? So it's the hip stays and so on, I think, right? They're called. Okay, but that is in place now. So let's zoom in what we have so far. Okay, so number one, you need this glue, like I said, and then memory wire or thin brass wires are your friend. And there's how it looks so far. It's going to move the constitution out of the way. So that's the Java. Maybe I can zoom it in some further so you can get an idea of the details so far. So that's actually really good quality to the camera. I don't think I could do this with my old one to get all this detail in there so that you can see the work done so far. So that's how far I've gotten with Java and the Constitution. I'll show you the Constitution as well. I really like the stern. See if I can show you the stern on this one. Mm, that is something my friend did from an actual era model. Uh, so we know that is probably the most accurate you can get for that. Really cool, little different stern gallery. Feels very French to me. Uh, Lots of little details here on the deck so far as you can see, and some damage and so on. Very little damage to the hulls, really. There is some penetrations, but I always feel like less is more with that type of stuff. Some of the paint flaking and so on. But then uh, doing too much, then it starts looking, I don't know, it might start looking like a toy again or something. So here's you see the Constitution much sluggish ship. I might have to zoom a little back out to be able to show. So can we do a little bit more? Really. So I just need to get used to this. Here's I see here's a little problem that I'm going to have to correct with the mast here. Sometimes you get some kind of bend. I'm gonna correct that with the stays later on, hopefully. And of course, the mast they did bend and so on might not be too visible, but oops, if you came off here. Okay. I think that's okay. Well, so those are the two models so far. The Constitution and the Java, and as far as I've gotten with them. And then as I move further along the build, I'll show you some more on them, I guess. So okay, so that's my face. So pretty neat with this. I have it set up so instead of, I mean, it's not perfect, the clipping I can see. I have a green screen, so I could probably set that up in the back here. But at least it shows my face. So that's it for this one. I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to put a little one I pre-recorded here at the end, show some pictures of the models before this point, and so you can have a look at that, and then probably speed this one up. We'll see if I end up using it at all. Okay. I am testing some new equipment, and that is all part of me trying to get this the quality of the channel a little bit higher and so on. So it's a little bit of a test of this new equipment, and I'm going to be using it in two different situations. But today we're starting off with number one, and that is trying to show off a little bit better my builds. Like when I build stuff, how does it look? Or how does it work? So like, because I think those build logs are the ones that many of you like the most. This build is quite far in, as you can see from the picture here. I have already started this with the standing rigging, and this is a diorama in 1/700 scale of the USS Constitution and HMS Java, and they had their encounter in the War of 1812, in December of 1812 to be more exact. And I'm trying to portray this as good as I can. The models are those fantastic ones for my friend. I think this is as close as you can get to the actual look of the ships at the time, as far as the house goes. And then I try to do credit with my paintwork and the other details I add in. So you see I've already painted these, and I've added crew, and as I said, I've started to work on the standing rigging. And the standing rigging, this time I'm trying to keep it using my own app for the standing rigging, my mast and spark calculator. It's available in the project section on Linus Napoleonic Shipyard if you want to give it a go. So diameters are thinner than I would normally I would go with a little bit wider diameter just to have them show a little bit more for gaming tables and so on. But since this is a diorama, I'm trying to get them more to scale. So the widest, mainstay, so the widest cable or widest rope, it's going to be 0.15 millimeters in this build. And you see this is already in here on both ships. And then the thinnest I'll be using is 0.02 millimeters. That is like a hair. And that's going to be for the running rigging. The thing you have to realize when you're working in these very tiny diameters in 1/700 scale is, at least if you have not perfect eyesight like me, some of these details are not going to show without magnification. So many of these threads, they're going to be there, you're going to feel that they're there, but you're not going to be able to exactly see them because they're just that tiny. But then again, I want to keep this diorama as realistic as I can, so that's why I went with these diameters. So that's use case number one, and hopefully what I'll be doing, it is not the best of environments sound-wise where I am working, because I'm right beside my voyeur where I have my parrots and so on, so they might be interfering sound-wise. And the house there's a lot of noises. Normally I record sound we have a little guest house, and so I record the sound down here. But I'm going to try it with that one, and it's a Insta 360, Link 2 Pro, it's called. It's a webcam, but it has some AI tracking features. It's 4K, and I think the sound quality should be pretty okay on it. So I'm going to be using that. So I'm going to be like live reporting as I build today, and see what you guys think about that. Maybe or maybe not, I'll be using this as a something I presented with, but or maybe I just go with it straight away. We'll see. And the other use case, or maybe I'll just put this at the end so you guys can watch what I'm doing first, and then I'll just tell you there in the video that I'm putting this at the end. So if you want to hear more of the background, then you can check there. So the other use case that I'm hoping for is to use it with my work laptop. Because I don't have a laptop of my own, so but the work laptop, if I'm allowed to install the apps, and then on a tripod, because with the Stream Deck you can like pre-program angles and directions, so I could just with a press set it to record and AI track the group like as we're playing, talking to each other, and then I could set it to with just a button press to focus on the whole gaming table, and then maybe also programming sectors, so we could focus sectors. So, and I could just do that, and I think that will be what I'm after. Is not anything but upgrading the quality for you guys, so that you get something more interesting to watch, combining that with some of the photos that I normally take. But I'm also considering upgrading, because I'm just taking the photos with my camera, and so that's something I'm looking at in the future, a better camera for taking the actual photos of the models that has an actual macro lens, I think, so that you can just get in close and still have it sharp, and also that can capture the light, so you get clearer pictures, so it just looks better. Because sometimes I realize that the stuff I do, I mean, I'm trying to have a good quality. I'm picky, but for me sometimes it's not enough. And so hopefully with this upgrade with this webcam used for recording the video, you will have a more detailed and interesting battle report, and also build reports. And then also with some eventually a better camera, I can take some better pictures, and we get in general an upgraded quality of everything. So that's it. And so if this ends up at the end, I'm going to just wish you all fair winds and following seas.